Hi everyone, Neal here. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a concert that I'm going to be giving with Origin Stories on October 17th at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Oakland as part of Glenview Classical Series. Origin Stories is releasing an EP, so we're getting together to celebrate that. They're an excellent duo, a guitar duo, semi-improvised, folk leaning with a little bit of jazz influence, and I'm told they'll also be joined by a drummer and an upright bassist, which will be awesome. I'm going to start the show off with a short classical guitar set, just some of the stuff that I've been working on lately. I'm going to go in chronological order of these pieces. I'm not sure what the order of the program will be, but it's a really wide program in terms of like eras. Which is what's really cool about guitar is the instrument we play these days is relatively modern invention with the 6 strings, nylon or steel or whatnot. But pluck strings have been around for a really long time in Western Europe, so there's a really wide-ranging repertoire that can be adapted to the modern guitar. So some of the music I'll be playing is not necessarily written for this 6-string guitar that we know and love, but adapts pretty well to that instrument because it was originally written for lutes or harpsichords or things like that. So to start off, I'll talk about a Fantasia by the composer Gregorio Howitt, or Hewitt. We don't really know much about this composer. This piece appeared in a compilation of pieces for lute by John Dowland, who's a famous English lutenist from the late 1500s, early 1600s. And Howitt was likely from Belgium, and there's just a handful of compositions that exist, but this Fantasia is probably the most well-known. And like a lot of Renaissance fantasias, it's anchored in a very simple theme that's sort of recycled and recontextualized throughout the composition. The Renaissance Fantasia and the Ricercar, which is a related form, are sort of precursors to the Baroque fugue, which is like Bach wrote a lot of fugues. It's like it starts off with a very simple melody, and then similarly it's recycled and recontextualized. This Fantasia I love because the theme has a bit of chromaticism in it, so it breaks the bounds of sort of traditional key as we think about it, and as a result, there are some kind of like jazzy moments throughout the composition from this thing that's like 500 years old. So I just think that's kind of cool, like it because there's this chromatic element to the theme, it creates some harmonies that would otherwise kind of be unexpected in music this old. And I feel like a lot of really old music, like pre-Baroque music, Baroque music as well, but like pre-Baroque music just has some harmonies that are like so out there because it's from a time before we really conceived of chords in this like vertical manner and sort of codified like harmonic progression as we are familiar with today. It's really cool. It's a really moving piece, really epic, and I love that like a lot of these lute compositions from back then could be like quite epic in scale with a lot happening over the course of 5 minutes. And I just think it's cool to create such like an intricate composition with such a intimate instrument like the lute. It maps really well on modern guitar because on modern guitar you can play a lot of this this 16th, 17th century lute music by just tuning your 3rd string down a half step and then reading the tablature from the original manuscript, because a lot of this stuff was actually written in tablature, like a lot of modern guitarists are familiar with today. So I think it's really cool. You can, if you're curious and you play guitar, you can check out this piece by Howitt or any of the other lute pieces, John Dowland, from around this time. Next piece I'll move on to is a suite that I'll be playing by Dietrich Buxtehude, who was sort of an organist composer from Denmark in the late 1600s. He sort of formed the middle of what we call the North German organ school. Other composers associated with that are Sweelinck, who was sort of a generation before Buxtehude, and then of course Bach, who was a generation after Buxtehude. There's a kind of a cool tale of Bach when he was only like around 20. He walked hundreds of miles to the city where Buxtehude was working to attend a music festival that Buxtehude was putting on, and likely had contact with the composer. And Bach certainly used Buxtehude's music as a model for his composition. This piece that I'll play is a 4-movement suite adapted from harpsichord. It was originally published in organ tablature, which is kind of interesting. It's a form of notation that doesn't use a staff. It just writes the note names in sequence, and it was pretty common in this time in like the northern countries of Western Europe to be writing stuff in organ tablature. But it was likely intended for harpsichord, and it's in something that we call style brisé, which is a style of composition with a loose counterpoint, as opposed to like a strict counterpoint that we might see in like a Renaissance mass. This is a looser form of counterpoint that is meant to mimic actually the counterpoint on lutes. The lute was a popular instrument in the late 1600s, so these keyboard works use kind of arpeggiated figures and voices that sort of disappear and reappear. These were necessary sort of stylistic things that people did on the lute because it was very idiomatic to that instrument. And it's kind of interesting in a harpsichord piece like this that they were sort of trying to mimic what a lute player would sound like. And we're kind of taking it full circle now by playing it on guitar, another plucked instrument similar to lute. So this is a transcription done by Julian Bream in the middle of the 20th century. Bream was a British classical guitarist who really expanded the classical guitar repertoire in a major way, looking both backward and forward by commissioning works from 20th century composers to fit the guitar. But anyway, this is one of his more backward-looking projects where he resurrected this little-known harpsichord suite by Buxtehude and arranged it for guitar. So I'll be playing that. It's in E minor. It's a French suite, so it has the typical French dances that we see, Allemande, Courante, Sarabande, and Gigue. The Sarabande is particularly beautiful, really pensive, and with beautiful chains of suspensions, which is really pretty. And then the Gigue is cool. It's just like a rollicking 6/8, and I'm having fun kind of experimenting with different ways to emphasize the groups of 3 and 6/8 to keep it dancey. Because of this, while people maybe didn't necessarily dance to this suite in particular, it's meant to allude to dance forms that were present in the courts at this time. Great piece. I'm excited to share with you. Moving on, I'm going to be playing a transcription for guitar of a string quartet, a movement of a string quartet by Mendelssohn. I believe it's Opus 12. This is an early string quartet from Mendelssohn, and this is the Canzonetta movement, which has kind of become a standard guitar piece ever since Francisco Tárrega, the great guitar composer, luminary from the late 19th century in Spain. He transcribed this string quartet, and it fits really well on guitar, and has now become kind of a standard guitar piece. It takes a lot of twists and turns. It starts off with kind of a mystical, kind of spooky first section, pretty quick. And then it moves into a much faster section with a lot of modulations in the middle, and then it returns back to this kind of spooky theme in minor, kind of like, I don't know, like a spooky Halloween dance. So maybe that will be good for this October show. I didn't even think about that. But anyway, Canzonetta by Mendelssohn, Opus 12, I believe, if you want to check out the original. And then there's lots of great recordings on guitar, and I'll do my best at presenting one to you live during this show. moving onward, I'll be playing an arrangement of a Catalan folk song by Miguel Llobet. He has a collection of these beautiful arrangements of Catalan folk songs arranged for guitar. Llobet was, along with Tárrega in the late 19th century in Spain, was sort of an exponent of the guitar and was responsible for bringing the instrument into concert halls and playing classical music on it, and yeah, just sort of elevated the prestige of the instrument and showcased that it could do maybe not as much as the piano can do, but you can play it in a pianistic way with bass line and multiple voices and stuff. And so anyway, this is one of his arrangements of a Catalan folk song from this collection. It's probably the most famous one. It's called El Testament d'Amelia. Beautiful piece in D minor with the sixth string dropped down to D to really make the instrument resonate. And it uses, it's a mournful melody, and then it also uses in certain sections some artificial harmonics for this kind of sparkly effect, which is really cool. Lastly, I'll mention a piece by Agustin Barrios, or Agustin Barrios Mangoré, who was a Paraguayan composer and guitarist in the late 19th century, early 20th century. And the piece I'll be playing is Julia Florida by Barrios. It's a barcarola, which is a song form associated with Venetian gondoliers. So it's in three, and it kind of has this boat-like lilt to it. Beautiful song, many different sections, very romantic in character. Even though Barrios was active in the 1920s, 1930s, his compositions tend to sound as if they were from a few decades earlier. In Paraguay, he didn't have access to a lot of the up-and-coming new music that was coming, that Segovia was performing. And for this reason, his compositions, they have this romanticism. They really lean into it in a really beautiful way. This was kind of an impediment to Barrios being accepted as a composer to be taken seriously for a long time, because there was an anti-romantic sentiment in sort of the modernist movement of the early 20th century. But today especially guitarists, have really come to love Barrios's compositions because they're so idiomatic for the guitar. I mean, he knew the instrument inside and out and really knew how to make it sing. Julia Florida is a great example of this. Beautiful, again, drop D, really makes the instrument sing, D major, with some fantastic modulatory middle sections, which eventually lead us back to this beautiful boat-like kind of like a ballad almost, like a singing kind of melody. I can describe it all I want, but if you can come and hear it, I think that'll probably be better. Anyway, it's great to play Barrios's music and think about how hard he worked in his life and really wasn't recognized. And it's cool to pay homage to this guitar great from Paraguay now that he's gotten the recognition he deserves. So yeah, those are some of the things that I'll be playing. Come out on October 17th. And please come out to hear origin stories. I'm super stoked to hear them. Two amazing guitarists on the scene, Lizzie and Chanel, and it's just going to be a pleasure to share a bill with them. And I want to thank so much Derek Supp and Louis Patzner for putting this together. I can't wait. So it'll be super fun. Come out. Take care. Bye.